Hey, what's up YouTube? So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down how I made over $6,000 sports betting in February. Now, I'm not here to tell you any BS that I won every single day because that's not true and it's also not possible. You can see in the final 2 days of February, I actually lost $3,700, which sucks, but it's just kind of how it is, right? As a sports bettor, you're going to have bad beats. There's gonna be days that don't go your way. The bets don't go your way, but you need to have a long-term focus. You have to understand the sharp betting strategies that will make you money long-term, like positive EV, like arbitrage, and try to have a long-term focus. I always think of it like being a poker player, you know? Even if I'm the best poker player in the world, there's gonna be days where I sit at the table and I just get dealt a bunch of crappy cards like 2-7 and 3-8, and I end up losing money. That's just kind of how it is. Before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me realize that, I'm doing more than just hearing myself talk, because there's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of things that I had to learn when I started sports betting, like comparing odds from book to book. And guess what? Sportsbooks aren't going to teach you. FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, they're not gonna teach you how to make money. That is not in their interest. So you kind of have to learn this stuff on your own. But if you have any questions throughout the video as well, please feel free to comment them. I'm always happy to help, explain, answer anything. So in this video, I'm gonna be breaking down the sports books I use, the books I'm having the most success on, as well as the strategies I'm using. But the first thing I wanna mention is, as a sports bettor, you have to be using multiple sports books. And the reason for that is all these books set their own odds. So the market is extremely fragmented. I've given this example in other videos, but I think it's really important, is if you think about, being an investor, buying a stock. Well, if you go to E-Trade, Robinhood, Fidelity, you're gonna see the exact same price for that stock. There may be like very slight differences in fees, but the market is efficient, right? There's one price for a stock, basically. Whereas in sports betting, that's not the case. All these books, there's hundreds of sports books, thousands of sports books. If you think about, the entire world, all these books are running around trying to set their own lines independently. So I'll give you an example of a play that I locked in on FanDuel, which is Emmanuel Quickly over 3.5 made threes. So if you look at FanDuel, they have this at plus 150. So you're betting 100 to win 150 in profit. You look at all the other sports books, they're around like plus 120. BetMGM has this at plus 120, betting 100 to win 120. So the first thing you should realize is, wow, for the exact same bet, there's super different prices, and BetMGM is an absolute ripoff. If you're placing bets at plus 120 when there's other sportsbooks offering plus 150, you're getting ripped off. You're never going to make money. No sports bettor wins every day. I'm up over $45,000 this year approximately. Nobody wins every single day, but I promise you, you will get killed. You will lose a ton of money if you're only using one book and you're not comparing lines between sports books. It's like being a day trader. If you have to buy every stock at 40% higher of a price, you're never gonna be able to make money because you're getting ripped off. Okay, so the first thing that I highly encourage everyone to do is sign up for every sportsbook in your state, every single one. If you have access to FanDuel, DraftKings, MGM, Caesars, get all of them. The more books you're using, the better, because these differences in prices, plus 120 versus plus 150, you may not feel the difference in your profit and loss over the course of a day, but over the course of a year, it makes a huge difference. So here you can see my profit and loss by sportsbook in February. So the app I'm using is called Pick'em. It basically syncs with your sportsbooks, reads in all your bets, and then you can see a bunch of different analytics like profit and loss by sportsbook. So again, my number one tip for new sports bettors is you need to be using multiple sports books. Quickly over 3.5 threes, it's the exact same bet on MGM versus FanDuel, but the price is extremely different. Plus 120 on MGM, plus 150 on FanDuel. It's just like being a day trader. You may love buying a stock at $120, but you may not want to buy the stock at $150. It's a completely different trade, and it's the same thing in sports betting. You need to be price conscious. There's a price for every single bet. So you can see in February, my top 4 sports books were FanDuel, Flip, Dabble, and Underdog Fantasy. So I'll get into each of these books, but I do want to say I wouldn't recommend reading too much into each sports book over the course of a month. So for example, on Caesars, you can see I lost over $5,000. And some people would say, wow, never bet on Caesars again. But most of that, it's kind of misleading because I bet $5,000 on the 49ers in the Super Bowl and they ended up losing. So I'm still going to use Caesars in March. I had a crappy February, but I only placed 10 bets. That's a super small sample size, so I wouldn't read into that too much. It's the same thing with Prize Picks. Some people will say, wow, you only made $265 on Prize Picks. I see you betting a lot of Prize Picks plays. Why is that the case? Well, if you look at Prize Picks, unfortunately, I've made too much money on Prize Picks. They only give me $5 per bet now. I can't even bet more than $5 per play on Prize Picks, so it's not gonna be that impactful in terms of my profit and loss because I can only play $5, which is super annoying, but that's just kind of how it is. Some books, if you're making big profits off them, they may try to lower or limit your max bet size. So I follow a very data-driven approach to my bets, and the main strategy that I use to beat the sportsbooks is called positive EV betting, and I'll give you a simple example. So if you look here, I played Moses Moody over 10.5 points at -115 odds on Flip. So again, the price you're getting, the odds you're getting, it really matters. I would not have bet this at -140 on DraftKings. It's a completely different bet. It's like buying a stock at $115 versus $140. It's a completely different trade. So what you're gonna notice is Flip is the only sportsbook that has Moody's under favored. They have the under at -140, so there's more juice towards the under. So you know that Flip, they have the under as the favored outcome, right? They have the over at -115, the under at -140, more juice towards the under. Every other sportsbook, you look at BetMGM, Caesars, DraftKings, Bovada, all these other books, even if you don't use them, they're data points, they're sources of information. And what you're gonna see is all these other sports books have moved Moses Moody to being a pretty big favorite to go over 10.5 points, right? DraftKings has this at -140. Bovada has this at -150. So all of these books have slightly different models. They're taking different action, but all of these books have moved, as you can see in the line movement chart, they've shifted Moody to being a heavy favorite to go over 10.5 points. So Flip is stale. They're the only book with Moody favored to go under. They still have his over at -115 when all the other books have ripped Moody to being a pretty big favorite to go over around -140. So essentially the way you can think about this is imagine a stock goes up 20%. Right? Imagine Facebook has an earnings report and the stock goes up 20% and you're able to buy it at the old price. We know that the rest of the market has ripped Moody to being a heavy favorite to go over, and we're still able to bet this on Flip. They're still offering this play at -115. So we're getting a great price. This is a great risk reward because we're getting this at incredible odds relative to the rest of the market. And you have to remember, these sportsbooks are experts in setting lines. DraftKings is a multi-billion-dollar company. They have a better model than you. They're taking bets from millions of customers, moving their odds based on where action's coming in, particularly from their sharp, profitable customers, and they all have the over heavily favored. And we're getting this at -115 on Flip. Clear value relative to the rest of the market. It's like buying a stock at $115 when the rest of the market now has it priced around $145. So this is an example of positive EV betting, finding value in the market. Again, I follow a super data-driven approach. I know that basically nobody can create a better model than these sports books. I mean, think about it. DraftKings is a $10 billion company. They have better data than you. They have hundreds of engineers. They're gonna have a better model than you. You're not just gonna be able to spin up a better model than DraftKings. That's BS. But it's not only DraftKings. Every other sportsbook in the market has Moody heavily favored to go over. And most importantly, what these books have access to is flow. They're seeing bets come in. So if all the sharp bettors, if all of the sharp profitable customers on DraftKings are betting the over, they move the line towards the over, or they move Moody to a higher point line, like from 10.5 to 11.5, something like that. But regardless, clear value on Flip. That's an example of a play I locked in, and that's positive EV betting in a nutshell. So positive EV betting is how I beat traditional sports books like FanDuel, like DraftKings, like Flip, like Caesars. Well, I guess not Caesars last month because I lost over $5,000, but you get the point. I follow a super data-driven approach. I completely remove my emotions from sports betting and just hunt for value in the market. And I know it's not sexy. I'm not saying there's a way to turn $100 into $1 million in a month. I'm not, talking about any BS here. I'm talking about how you actually get an edge and beat the sports books. Now, for the people watching this video who are like, that's crazy, you're not even talking about watching sports, watching highlights, and that informing your plays. I mean, you got to do something different, right? 99% of sports bettors watch sports and then they bet with their gut and they all lose money. You have to do something different. You have to follow a data-driven, a market-driven approach if you want to beat the books. But there's a whole other type of gambling, which is called DFS Pick'em or fantasy books. And the two most popular fantasy books or DFS Pick'em sites are PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy. And the way that these platforms work is they have fixed payouts. So for example, what I mean by that is if you look at Underdog Fantasy, I have Jalen Smith and Devin. Is if you take Jalen Smith to go over or under, it literally doesn't matter. You get the same payout regardless of if you take a player's over or under. Any 2-pick entry you create on Underdog Fantasy, you get a 3x payout. So basically, on these fantasy books, these DFS Pick'em sites, like PrizePicks, like Underdog Fantasy, it all boils down to win rate. What percentage of your picks can you win? They always give you the same payout for a 2-pick entry, so you just want to find the picks with the highest possible win rate. So how do you do that? Well, you compare the lines on PrizePicks and Underdog to Sportsbooks. So for example, in this Jalen Smith play, you'd want to take his under. All of the sports books, all of the data points in the market have him heavily favored to go under. Every sports book, even if you don't use these other books and you only use PrizePicks or Underdog, all of these books are data points. They're all telling you, hey, Jalen Smith is a lot more likely to go under, so that's the sharp, profitable play you want to be on. And it's the same thing. For these fantasy books, for these DFS Pick'em sites like PrizePicks, like Underdog, I follow a super data-driven approach. I compare the lines on these books to sports books like FanDuel, like DraftKings, like Flip. I find market discrepancies where the books have an under or over heavily favored. In this case, it's Jalen Smith's under. So that's a sharp, profitable pick we want to be on Underdog Fantasy that I locked in. So next, we can get into my profit and loss by sport. So you can see in February, the NBA was my best sport, and I highly recommend you bet on every single sport. Sometimes there's really good bets in the NHL. Sometimes it's the NBA. It doesn't make sense to just be like, oh, I'm just going to focus on the NFL. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Sometimes there's really good NBA bets. Why would you want to miss out on them? So when I wake up in the morning, it's not like I say, oh, I want to place 5 NBA bets and 3 college basketball bets today. That's not how it works. If there's 15 good bets in college basketball, but 0 in the NBA, I'll place 15 college basketball bets in a day. It's all about where is the value. If there's no value in the NBA, I'm not gonna force an NBA bet. So I strongly encourage any new sports bettor, you don't try to focus on one sport. You should be betting on every sport. The next thing I wanted to mention is take advantage of low-hanging fruit, the easy money that these books offer. A lot of these sports books, they run promos, and it's basically a marketing cost for them. All these books are in ruthless competition for new customers, so they try to stay attractive and interesting by offering promos. So for example, one of the books that I use called Sleeper, in February, they had a $50 protected play. So basically, you place a $50 play, if you lose, you get your money back. That's a no-brainer. As another example of a no-brainer promo is when LeBron was about to cross 40,000 points, Underdog Fantasy ran a promo discounting his points line to over under 8.5 points. His normal points line was around 24.5, something like that. They reduced his line to 8.5. Obviously, that's a play you want to lock in. So take advantage. I really check the sports books every single day to see if there's any good promos, easy money promos that I can take advantage of, because this really is the easiest money you'll make sports betting. I tell all my new friends, even if you're not a hardcore bettor like I am, you can probably make $500, $1,000 a month in profit just taking advantage of these no-brainer promos like Sleeper's $50 protected play. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, please like, please subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, comment them below. I'm happy to answer. There's a lot of pitfalls in sports betting, so my goal is to just help out. Thank you so much.